IZ Corp Radio, 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 IZ Corp Radio. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is I once again, Lord IBO Hards, and you're listening to IZ Corp Radio's Just the Facts. That's our infamous podcast. It's just ripping through the world right now. People are going nuts over this podcast. So what we're talking about is just the facts. So a lot of people, they pose questions. Again, this is Lord IBO Hards. We do a lot of economist stuff here. Basically that's all we do. And a lot of people, they pose questions to me and they talk about, well, what's going on with this and what's going on with that? I know you get a lot of questions too. I mean, people don't know what's going on out here. So here at Just the Facts, we discuss things like that. It's important because people's monies are at stake, people's livelihood is at stake. So we just sit back, relax, and we started this podcast so people can come together and just congregate and talk about money. So we one thing that concerns the largest, it's not always about the largest economy, because we have a sister network of on IZ Corp Exchange Television that discusses global economies, and the U.S. including. It's called the Wide World of Trade Report, and you should check out their bellwether station, which brings you the new economic data that's happening in the world. So people talk about recession. In the event of a recession, the federal government will not engage in expanding economic policy, and that's true. Someone says, well, you remember the federal government doesn't need permission from Congress to engage itself in expansionary policy, or maybe they do that behind the scenes, because we just saw the biggest interest rate hikes, and I don't know if anybody knew about that. Was there a vote about it? So, it turns out that when the opportunity to display expansionary policy, the economy actually expands, which in turn allows the federal government to address expansionary fiscal and monetary policies. And I think that's what we're seeing right now in the United States of America's U.S. economy. This research explains expansionary fiscal and fiscal policy regarding necessary changes that take place in how taxes and how government spends their money and how it affects the economy. Now, this is important because the confidence in government is reflected by the broad-based economy. So a question right now is, do you have faith in the U.S. government, and their leadership? We're discussing economic policy. We're not talking about what do you call that stuff when you go outside the U.S. and you engage, foreign policy. We're not talking about foreign policy. We're not talking about green and stuff. We're just talking about economic policy, how the money is governed, how the government spends the money, the big people who are in business and money, and how they react to how the government spends the money, because that's how, when the big guys move, most little people follow. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's not a big secret of how people think in economies. The big, rich, wealthy, fancy guys say, I'm gonna buy tech stocks, and most people look around and say, you know what, I'm gonna buy tech stocks too. Today I rarely see contrarian investors. I really don't see people who sit back and say, no, I'm not gonna go with the mob. Most people out here are just strictly mobbing. And you can see that in the stock market today. I mean, how many people would say, I'm not buying Amazon? Amazon just did the biggest split in the history of the company, one of the biggest splits in market history, and you would sit back and say, well, I'm not gonna buy Amazon at $1, $1.50. That doesn't make sense. How many people would say that? And that would be a contrarian approach to investing in technology, because Amazon alone can pull the queue up and make the technology sector just blow out, and it would cause other companies, if they're not close to take out the highs. So I don't really see a contrarian approach to the market. So it's not like you're all on the same page or you're speaking for everybody, but it's just a common sense. Today is pretty much a common sense thing. The research also shows the effect on aggregate demand, GDP, and not finally, but most important, employment. Now, why is employment important? Again, you're listening to Just the Facts podcast on CORP Exchange Radio, CORP Radio, and this is Lord IBO Reese Hartz, and we present Just the Facts, the new podcast that we're just dropping out. Employment, because the employment, you see a lot of angles to it. You have the non-farm payroll, you have this payroll, you have the private sector. And what's really interesting is this new minimum wage thing. It's very, very interesting on how people are looking at how much people get paid. And the new thing we have is the Yabatts. For those of you who don't know what a Yabatt is, that's the amount of money that an employee gets paid hourly. At IZ Corp Exchange, we call those Yabatts. So you have to think about the Yabatts, and also where people are living. What's the cost of living in there? Because people say, well, the economy, and it's not offensive, because there's no right or wrong answer when you're an economist. You know what I'm saying? You just have to be. You just can't really pick political sides. And you can't really say, no, you're not the word use can't. You're not supposed to say, oh, by the end of March, or by the end of March 23, the stock market will be 50,000, because you don't know that. Me, from a dead brain economist approach, I can say I can probably put you in the ballpark. You know what I'm saying? But you can't. An economist cannot give you the exact number or the exact way the economy is going to flow. You see what I'm saying? So if you're in South Florida, or if you're in upstate New York, or if you're in Seattle or Tacoma, Washington, or something like that, the Yabatts, what the employer is paying the employee, won't affect those three different communities or individuals the same way. Because the person in South Florida is going to pay a different tax and a different rent, and he's paying a different cost for food than the person in New York or in San Francisco. You have to keep this in mind when you're looking at the broad-based economy. So when we say the broad-based economy, you can't just say, well, the economy's fucked up, or the economy's messed up. You really just can't say that. You have to say, well, where are you? Are you in Virginia? Are you in West Virginia? Or are you in New Orleans? Are you in Wisconsin or Minnesota? Or are you in Atlanta? And how much are you earning? What is your earning thing? So you really can't just say. And so we don't speak for everybody. As an economist, I don't just speak for everybody. So the employment is very, very, very important. You might live in a part of the economy where there's not a lot of job growth. You might live in an economy where they're building big buildings all the time. When you build a big building, you need maintenance people, you need parking people, you need security people. If you live in a low-lying area where they don't build a lot of places, there's not a lot of traffic. There's less jobs being created in that area. So the government's getting less tax, off of the people, because there's not a lot of people, there's not a lot of foot action, there's not a lot of action. So you always have to keep in mind how employment is so dear to the economy. and you have to understand how to study the employment because it has a bunch of moving parts. Yeah, there's GDP, yeah, there's supply and demand, but employment is serious because that's how you get your money. That's the money. And it's how the person, it's what the person earns is how it's gonna reveal how he lives his life. You know, not many people, especially in the Western Hemisphere, are sitting back and saying, "Well, I make $1 million a year and I don't drive. I drive a clunker." You know, not many people live like that. You know, you have money, you don't have rats and roaches in your house. That's just common sense. You know what I'm saying? You have. It's not like you flaunt it, but your lifestyle is better than a less fortunate person who's not making any money. So it tells of the amount of money tells how a person walks, how a person talks, how a person lives their life. And there's really no getting around that. You know, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So you need, let's focus on, when we're looking at the US economy, the broad-based US economy, employment is your dark horse. You know, employment is bold print. So the research focuses on those three tools, and then, you know, you have to always watch what the Federal Reserve Bank is using to conduct his monetary policy. You know, we've been seeing a lot of stimulus, but in 2008 we were sitting back, and I don't watch much TV now. Again, you're listening to IZ Corp Radio, and this is Just the Facts podcast. IZ Corp Exchange, Lord Ebo Reese Hards, IZ Corp Radio, Just the Facts podcast. So you know, we haven't seen the U.S. Demonstrate austerity measures like we saw in 2008 when the Eurozone, when they were saying, well, the euro dollar's messed up. Instead, you know, they gave them money to help out so they can sustain their government and put food on the shelves in the stores and open up back the railways and do what they had to do. So you always have to watch how the Federal Reserve is gonna how they conduct themselves. You know, there's no rule and there's no regulation. I don't even think they have a guideline. Maybe they put a mandate or a yield curve into just, this is our goal. You know, I don't know what is a mandate. A mandate is a goal, right? The yield curve is the plan we're taking to get to that goal, right? Is that how that works? You know, feel free to chime in, because people think that the stock market is the economy, and it's not even close. You know, that kind of person is lost when it comes to understanding how the strength and the weakness of the U.S. dollar versus the ruble, or versus what's going on in South Africa. Or when you start talking on the news and you say, oh, we're gonna the U.S. economy is sanctioning Russia or sanctioning China, but we're getting goods from them at the same time. We're taxing their goods, we're using their products, but then they sanction them. You know, if somebody's thinking the stock market is the economy, then you wouldn't understand why the price is going up, and price action, and what's happening to you in your own community. You know, and it's not like this is they don't really teach these things in school. You have to go out of your way to understand. You know, some people don't know supply and demand. You sit here, you say, well, why is the gas going up? The gas goes up because the supply goes down. There's a scarcity. There's not enough gasoline to satisfy the need of the people in that community. So the price is going to go up. The price will go down when you have more than enough gas and you're just sitting on oil and gas all over the place. And it's like, damn, I can't really sell this stuff, so I'm going to discount it. I need to move the price down so I can move my stuff and buy more and make more money. That's how supply and demand. That's how I understand supply and demand works. But again, feel free to chime in, because the more people get involved, the better it is for me, the more money I make. The faster IZ Corp Radio and Just the Fact blows up, and then everybody's happy. Right now we see a global contingency fear. And, you know, it's not mainly because of terror, but it's like financial terror. You know, the last administration goes, there's a trade war, there's trade war. We see financial terror in the United States right now as you see gas prices going through the roof. I don't even know if it's going to ever, if it will stop. I remember in 2008 when oil went over $100 a barrel. It got up there. That was huge. Now it was, the last time I checked, it was 121. It went down to 116 or something. I can't even look at it right now. I just look at the price and say, wow. But to trade it right now, you might see some very, very violent moves in the Earth's blood space. And you know, around the sitting tables, you know, the powers that be are negotiating constantly on what's the best way to take care of the people in the economy. You know, that's important. You know, people say like happy wife, happy life. You don't want the people, your economy, to be getting all upset. You know, you don't want your natives to be restless. You know what I'm saying? You don't want that. Maybe the doom and gloom people in the economy, they want to say, well, I'm doing better than this person, but you want everybody to be to feel satisfied and to feel like they're needed and they're wanted with the human beings in the economy. You don't want people to be thinking that, well, I have, you don't have, and that's just the way it's going to be. You want everybody to be satisfied. That way you have good relationships between the people and government, and the country can expand, the economy can expand, and people will prosper. The good thing is sometimes some people are spiteful, you know, against their leaders, and they get upset and they decide they're going to go off and do their own thing. And then another question is, you know, what does that do to your currency? What does that do to the currency in the world? You know, for those of you familiar with currency trading, you have the way you trade the currencies, you can trade your currency straight up, you know, but at the same time, you're matching against another currency. You see what I'm saying? So you always have to watch out. How does the U.S. dollar match up against the Australian dollar, or the Brazilians, or the peso, or the rupee? You know, you always have to pay attention. Where is your money compared to this money? And that's not just in trading. You know, when you go outside the economy, you see you have to exchange your money to match up, because they might not have a system that takes dollars. So you have to be able to understand how much is my dollars worth to their dollars, and how much is their inflation rate going, so I can see how much money I have how much money of my money I'm going to end up spending at the end of the day. You know, you don't want to get gypped. So you're watching, you've just been listening to Just the Facts on CORP Radio. We're going to make the segments longer, but we want to see more people getting involved first before we invest the money to buy more time to bring you Just the Facts podcast. And it's just burning through the airwaves right now. So we do a new thing, you know, we make it real simple. And I think moving forward, you know, I have a company called IC Technology. And the way I see it, I think this is the way podcasts are going to be done. You know, you have the iTunes, you have all these podcast people. But then when I'm looking at people trying to get to my podcast, they have to download this, they have to register for this, they have to download an app, they have to register the app. I might charge them. And then before you know it, you know, they're really not really interested. You know, the world is moving just that fast. So what we're doing is we're just putting it straight on YouTube right now. So there's no, you know, most people can just look on their phone and they can just go to YouTube and just listen to whatever that they want to do. So now you can just go straight to YouTube, CORP Radio, Lord Boris C. Hines, and just punch in Just the Facts. And you can follow the podcast whenever we're on. We want to get on at least 3 times a week right now until we get a daily rhythm, you know, and then we can talk and sit back and drink, what am I drinking? Chamomile mint tea for the next hour, and study economies. CORP Radio, Lord Ebo Reese Hearts, Just the Facts Podcast. Thank you and have a very, very blessed day. Goodbye.